Transitioning from high school to college did not at all mean I was going to leave my nerdy hobbies behind, so when I matriculated to UC Santa Barbara and pledged myself in the Greek system, joining Alpha Epsilon Pi, well, while I was, that cool Greek guy, I was definitely still a toy nerd. Hey, it didn't stop me from getting the girl in the end, but it wasn't exactly something that I was flying my freak flag high, shall we say. I mean, obviously we all wound up meeting again in Spaceballs 2, The Search for Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise, but it was much more of a closeted hobby until I was an adult. I mean, now, everything is everywhere, just like all of you, right? We have this awesome man cave, but yeah, back in college, I wasn't exactly putting my Star Wars toothbrushes in the communal bathroom, Let's face it, we're all addicted to these action figures. It's a big part of our lives, but they don't exactly translate to the cool factor when it comes to being social. But as college ran forward, does college run forward? I don't know. It continued. Well, alongside it were the never-ending Hasbro action figures, which were now in the heart of the Power of the Jedi movement, which replaced Power of the Force 2 after Phantom Menace came out and all the lines were combined into one. Now, while I didn't have any place to shop in college for toys, there was always eBay, and this next wave of Power of the Jedi figures I remember having shipped to the fraternity house because I remember opening it up in the middle of the fraternity house courtyard and being like, toys! And people were coming around and being like, what the heck are you doing with toys? But it was Squidhead. It was Tessek. I was so excited to get this wave. So this figure in particular, Tessek, who is the only Tessek figure we've ever had in the modern line, well, he was an awesome figure, and while it'd be great to have a replacement, maybe more articulated one, he gets the job done. And this was a favorite figure of mine as a child, so yes, getting this at college was pretty cool, even if I had to, hide him in my room. So, who in the world is Tessek Squidhead? Well, he's that guy on the far left there who shows up in a lot of publicity shots, and he's actually in quite a few shots from the movie, which is why getting an action figure of him is so important, because we like to be able to create or recreate those shots from the movies in a way, shot by shot. So, getting Tessek, aka Squidhead, into our collection has always been an important thing, because you kind of see him all over the place on Jabba's palace and in the sail barge and, et cetera, et cetera. So as I mentioned, he was one of Jabba's goon members that we did get as a kid. At least, well, I got him as a kid. I don't know if you did, but man, did I love this character. It was just awesome. Not only because, his colors were kind of like so muted where he could sort of fade into the background, but there's not too many characters you get with tentacles coming out. And as a child, we all have to have our, Cthulhu. Boy, I can't even pronounce things anymore. Yeah, he could have been like a Cthulhu character, probably. But instead, he was just Squidhead. Probably the name Cthulhu was copyrighted at the time. Now, this was in a time when we were getting proper names. Back in the original Star Wars line from 1978, all the aliens just got nicknames because, well, nobody cared. But by now, for Return of the Jedi, all the background aliens were getting proper names. This was Bib Fortuna, not Tentacle Guy, or Three Eyes. So while we had Hammerhead and Snaggletooth and Walrus Man, and, well, Greedo is Greedo, although he was called Martian on set, by now, most of the figures had proper names. I suppose, yes, they could have called him, Cthulhu Guy. Maybe he would have sold better. Who knows? Maybe H.P. Lovecraft would have sued. All right, moving on from an awesome alien to an even awesomer droid, we have R2Q5. A very interesting specimen since, well, the only other astromech droids that we've gotten in the line so far, and we've been at this for well over 5-6 years, well, we had R2, and we've got R2 in a lot of different flavors and a lot of different cards with different features. The only other one was R5D4, which we probably got this one, well, I know we got this one, because he was one of the only droids, or astromech droids, in the original Kenner line from the 80s. We had 2 protocol droids, some medical droids, a box from the Lars family homestead. Now, the fact that this figure, when it was originally released, was armed to the teeth, including a split-open body with a projectile-launching mechanism, shows how much the early line was aimed squarely at kids and not the collectors that we like to think it is. Case in point, the buffed-out Luke. This was on trend with other kid figures. So while the original R5-D4 got a battle action treatment, eventually he did get updated, but that's a YouTube video for another time. Let's get back to actually talking about our hero droid of the moment, which is this little guy. So our first, not only Imperial astromech droid, but literally our third astromech droid in the entire line. We only had R2 and R5 at this point. So getting a third astromech droid was kind of mind-blowing. And I love the little hologram he came with, although the only time we ever saw a red hologram of Death Star 2 was in the Home One briefing scene. So I don't know if, he stole this or they stole it. I always have it next to Palpatine in my back office. I've always loved this accessory. It's been one of my favorites, even though it's not quite screen accurate. There's, not a scene of this character projecting a Death Star. Now, the whole thing about astromech droids with their different, R4s, R5s, R6s, this is currently, nowadays, tied to the dome shape, but that's not the way George Lucas imagined it all. When he found out that's what they were doing, he was like, yeah, that's not right, guys, but somehow it became canon. And getting the black-colored ones with some, orange highlight makes them imperial, and there were imperial versions of the droids just as much as there are, I guess, rebel ones, which don't have specific color schemes. Why do all the Imperials color all their droids black? Is it like, I don't know, is there something wrong with having, like, colorful droids? Who knows? Now, this droid figure absolutely predates when droid collecting really took off, when Entertainment Earth did the 2 different multi-packs that spanned the entire saga, or at least, the saga to date at that point. We hadn't exactly had all the prequels, but this really kickstarted collecting astromech droids because you could now get quite a lot of them. It's amazing how it took years for this to happen. I mean, now collecting astromech droids is sort of a sub-collection of the entire Star Wars collecting hobby. But yeah, back then, not so much. And getting an actual carded astromech droid was a big deal. And the fact that it was an Imperial one was like, yeah. Now, this droid actually did get redone later on, surprisingly, in the Celebrate the Saga packs that came out at the very end of the 5 Points of Articulation line after Episode 9. While we got other Imperial troops that were just carry forward, this was a repaint of the low articulation R2-D2 that came with Yoda in a 2-pack. So, hey, even this droid got a chance to be on shelf again. Following up the droid and completing this, triad of figures was Lando Calrissian, and boy did Lando need a good upgrade. Unlike all of the other main characters, he didn't get a flashback photo release because there really wasn't an equivalent to Lando in Episode 1. And what was great is all the previous Landos we've gotten, well, counting, the original, their capes are a little wonky. I mean, this guy's got a giant plastic cape, and the original one, of course, had the vinyl cape. Neither of these kind of show a cape that hangs off of Lando the way it does in the movie and allow him to do dashing, adventurous things, like that scene where he's running on the rooftops of Cloud City, jumping across using his Lando orang, or, the way the cape drops off of his left shoulder in certain still shots, or the way it drops off of his right shoulder in others. Okay, the point is, this is the way the cape is supposed to look. And neither of the 2 previous figures did justice to that. Not to mention the fact that the first Lando in the modern line was in an early release, meaning he got that buffed out look that was so, big with the kiddies, even continuing with other Landos that were in the Power of the Force 2 line. So, yeah, getting a Lando that not only had a cloth cape, and I'm very, very picky when it comes to using cloth on 3 3/4, but this is one of those times it really works. And we really needed an upgrade for this guy, because, look at the comparison in between body types. Now, there's only really 3 different Landos, 4 if you count the time that he dressed up like Han Solo at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Don't worry, we'll get to that eventually. But surprisingly, this classic Empire Strikes Back Lando has only been released 3 times in the entire modern line. The Power of the Force 2 one, this Saga Original Trilogy one, and then eventually a Vintage Collection one, which is probably still peg-warming at a store near you. I'm recording this in, September of 2022. Surprisingly, we never got Bespin Lando during the 5 Points of Articulation phase, when almost every other A-list character had all of their variants done in this way. So while we've gotten a superior figure in terms of the Vintage Collection, complete with more articulation and an even more improved cloth cape, it was a welcome change to get the new Power of the Jedi one, because the Power of the Force one needed an upgrade, and we were really in a high streak now, getting some great figures in this new scale that the 300th Boba Fett really helped legitimize. Hey, still beat getting this Lando. I mean, he's just walking around in Han's clothes.